network, senior staff at AQHA, executive leadership. I have a letter from some of these folks, like Bobby Simmons and Doug May and Gary McKinney, people that run hundreds, literally hundreds of horses. They said, yeah, that's a good idea. At that point, NMHBA and NMHA, that was not on the agenda for August, despite the fact that Mary stood up and said from NMHBA, you know, we don't like this. They didn't give us enough time to review it. I recognize that, and I sympathize with the time, but we were all under a time crunch. And candidly, I'm not certain where NMHBA has a veto power over our conditions anyway. That being said, we were told by staff that we could get an administrative approval for those conditions. And again, just to be clear, the timing was that the nomination date was October 1st. And we were here, we submitted these to everyone at the end of August. So then at the September meeting, when it was on the agenda for the commission to ratify a decision that the executive director made to approve these things, I was informed by council that that approval was rescinded. He wanted me to come back and present them again for approval. That's where we are now. So I want to really talk about the substance of the change. The substance of the change that seems to be upsetting most people, and that's the 1, 2, 3 finish in addition to the top 10 time requirement. I looked at the data. I looked at 224 trial races over 2 years and over 10 races. And the result of that is over the last 2 years, no horse that did not win his trial won a final race. And I mean, they're 10-0. Wind speed, track condition is highly correlated with finish time. It's highly correlated with finish position. Results of the finals are highly correlated to the winners of trials. And if you want to get into a deeper discussion about that, I'm happy to do that at your discretion. But there's a high correlation there. Mitigating this wind and track condition is important for a couple, 3 reasons. Number one, our goal with quarter horse trials is to get the 10 best horses in the final. That's why we race. Who has the best horse? And getting those 10 fastest horses in the trials means that we've got to run those trials as fairly as possible. And if wind and rain and wind direction is affecting the outcome, and we put 10 horses in that final race that are not qualified to be there, we're doing ourselves and the business and the owners and the investors and the bettors, if you will, a disservice. So we've got to mitigate those effects. This is the best way that I've seen and that others have seen to help mitigate that, because we don't adjust times. We don't make allowances for wind in the final times or the official times. Secondly, nominators have said they'll nominate more horses under this scenario. Gary McKinney, guy who probably nominates 40 to 50 head a year, said, I'll run more horses at Ruidoso if that's what you're going to do, because he believes that it's a drawing contest without it. And finally, if you have a trial qualifier that ran with no wind, then he ain't got much chance. Right? If he didn't have an adverse condition in his trial, he's going to be okay. If he runs against a headwind, the comments and feedback that I got from horsemen, we changed this condition from being on all races to only those days in which there are more than 100 head in the trial day. So we're talking the Triple Crown races. The last couple of years, the Zia Futurity, the All-American Derby this year had more than 100 on a single day. So this doesn't, that particular clause doesn't affect every race. It only affects those where we have more than 100 head. And we're saying 1, 2, 3 position. And when I show you the data, or if you want to look at the data, you'll see third place horses don't do very well in the final, hardly ever. And that's because if you can't, horse, Good horses are outstanding. They stand out from the field they're in. Trial winners stand out from the field they're in. In addition to being fast, they have to outdo their trial lanes. So pegging the qualifying time to finish position is an improvement in the fairness and the equity of the trial because of those conditions. With respect to the resistance to change from the breeders and owners, I get it. They were not given a lot of time to review a complex item, but they courtesy review into detail. And that's just not right. These are, well, first of all, the NMHA and ARD have a written agreement. We have a horseman's agreement that spells out the terms of our relationship. And in that document, it says the horsemen have the opportunity to edit and recommend changes to nominations. And I'm paraphrasing, but the actual language is they have the opportunity to edit and recommend changes to our stakes program. I'm loosely interpreting that to include the nomination form, but be that as it may, the terms of our agreement don't allow them to do a line item veto. The NMHBA has a statutory and fiduciary duty to allocate and distribute money generated at Ruidoso to Ruidoso bred races. I don't know what their standing is to say that our conditions don't suit them. Now, I fully recognize that the commission has the authority to approve or disapprove what we do at Ruidoso, but these are proprietary conditions. And I don't know that the racing commission has an authority to disallow a proprietary condition if it doesn't violate a law or a rule. I could be wrong, and council may counsel me otherwise, but these are proprietary conditions. When we made the change for the Oaks, when they made changes in the past for improvements to the program, they were seen as proprietary changes that were moving the game forward, and clearly they do so. These are the biggest races in 10 states. And so I recognize there's been a little furor. I recognize that people think I'm running this down their throats, but this is an improvement. Many people say so. Many qualified people say so. And I can only vow to move up this approval process in the years to come to the extent there are changes, but we can't wait to make changes every 2 years. If I can't make changes to the 2020 racing program in 2019, if I have to make changes in 2018 for 2020 or 2021, this business is going to be unmanageable. This is not management by committee. This is management by proprietary owners who are taking the risk, a regulatory agency that's looking at the laws and regulations, and all of us trying to move this business forward. And I respectfully request approval of these conditions. And we'll stand down for questions.
I really like every change you're making, quite frankly, and I'm only one, right?
Yes, sir. The January Triple Crown nomination form for all three races form going forward. But the 2020 form, first of all, the 2020 nomination form for Triple Crown,
Right.
done in January, is a marketing deal, right? It's meant to give people an opportunity to, at a discount, nominate to all three of those races, have their horses when they hit the sale, when they hit the yearling form in January says clearly that we have the right to amend these conditions.
Right. I read it many times. I understand.
So,
completely.
Again,
As long as they didn't sign up for the November stuff. That the November stuff is going to happen here in a couple of weeks.
yes,
And so this is out there for them to see.
sure.
The Triple Crown was all three races combined. You pay one price, you get all your horse in all three of them, and you separate them November to 15th. That's when this blank that you're changing comes into effect.
Many people will choose one, two, or three of those races. A lot of those horses are sold, right? So they've got that nomination and they can then,
Right.
if you weren't nominated in the Triple Crown form and you want to run in the All-American next year, you pay an extra penalty, more so than you would have for the Triple Crown
So
nomination.
you aren't changing anything that happened back in January. You're changing what's happening November the 15th.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's the only question I had.
Thank you for that clarification. I think that was a very good question. I think there's been a little confusion about what was what. And I think by you saying that it's a marketing tool to get a discount and nominate for all three off the bat for the purpose of enticing people to buy your horse at the sale.
Well, it's a money saver. It's a marketing effort. You know, those of you that go to yearling sales, look at engagements. Is he Breeders' Cup nominated? Is he Challenge nominated? Is he those are Triple Crown
What
nominated?
used to happen is when they were separate, they'd all in January, so you made one lump sum and you're eligible for all three of them. So it built, the way of building purses, and it was good marketing too. I think that was done.
No, and credit goes to the Hubbard organization.
Yeah.
Look,
Yeah.
the Hubbard organization over the last 30 years built today. It's the richest 2-year-old race in America of any breed. It doesn't happen, even in Breeders' Cup. I will take responsibility for the time, but I explained why that was, because we were delayed